the chairman asked the questions, you know, how many people have died as a product of a nuclear accident, and it hasn't happened. That sort of really isn't my goal in this. My goal is, I know what can happen, and the key is to prevent it from happening. Let me ask you some questions about the Crystal River plant in Florida, which I gather operated for 36 years. We're talking about 80-year licenses now. And apparently the concrete began to separate in the dome, and that led to its shutdown. Could you tell me a little bit about that and what happened? Because if we're going to go for 80-year licenses, we ought to, and you know, I just went into the faulty steam generators in San Onofre, and I suppose they could have, you know, patched them and kept operating, but they did the responsible thing and decommissioned it. So, and that, I've been there, and that site has been impeccably maintained by Southern California Edison, at least what somebody who's not a professional could see. So could you talk about just a little bit about what happened at Crystal River in Florida?
Yes, I can. We can provide you maybe some, probably a more granular information than I probably have. But what the issue of concrete degradation at Crystal River is, I understand it was in part because of some of the evolution or operations they undertook there, which had an adverse impact on the concrete. And noting that, when we look at subsequent license renewal, and we look at the things that we are most concerned about in terms of aging management, particularly we talk about passive long-lived components. Well, one of the issues is for us, and that we have done research on, or doing research on, and will look at as part of the renewal review, is the question of long-term adequacy of concrete structures at a site. So that is certainly something we look at in terms of, and is of concern to us, as is, for example, the integrity of the reactor pressure vessel, certain piping, certain cabling on the long term.
Do you have people that know what to look for, and has the commission seen the concrete degradation at Crystal River?
I believe we have looked. Yes, I believe our inspectors have looked at it, and because when I think it was discovered several years ago, my understanding is the licensee was considering whether or not it would restart the facility, whether it would do appropriate repair work, could do appropriate repair work. Ultimately, made a business decision to shut the facility down.
Yes.
But it is something we certainly were aware of. When discovering those conditions, they would have had to report those conditions to us, and we would have seen it through our inspection program. So, yeah, in that sense, very much so something we were became aware of.
Commissioner Ostendorf?
I just wanted to add one specific aspect to Crystal River. There is a maintenance error by the utility. Let's pretend that this water bottle is the containment. And pretend there's a rubber band around the circumference of this water bottle. That water bottle is being compressed by this rubber band. Now think that this is a containment made of concrete, and there's a cable rather than a rubber band around this bottle. Improper detensioning of that cable during maintenance is what caused the crack. So
improper?
Detensioning. There's this cable that was supposed to be...
Detensioning, which means loosening?
Means loosening.
Okay.
Taking the rubber band off.
Right.
And so when that cable was detensioned improperly, you had irregular application of forces to the containment. That was the root cause of why the concrete cracked.
Well, is that possible in other plants, or is it isolated to Crystal River?
Well, I think the procedure itself could happen someplace else. I think that Duke Energy learned a very expensive lesson here in that maintenance error. I want to make sure it's a maintenance error that caused the concrete to fail. We have a lot of people that do detailed reviews of concrete structures at nuclear power plants around the country. There's been a concern at the Seabrook plant in New Hampshire that we've spent a lot of time with industry and outside research groups to understand and are satisfied with the concrete structure at Seabrook. But there's a lot of attention paid to this particular area.
Well, that's good, but how was it brought to your attention about Crystal River?
Well, this is a pretty catastrophic failure. I think Commissioner Svenke probably has been to the plant. We've both been there. You see the cracks on the containment itself that occurred, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 feet long, something like that, after the cable was taken off inappropriately.
Okay.
It was visually detected by the licensee and at the same time by our resident inspectors.
Yeah, if someone were to ask this question, and I'm about to,